Hi, so my name's Laura Bolton from Simple Accounting, and we have Emma here who's going to discuss all the new furlough announcements that happened on Friday evening, just to give you a bit more understanding. So Emma, do you want to tell us about the first change? Really, there's been quite a number of changes there.
Yeah, more changes from the government coming through. So what we know is that the scheme's going to stay in its current state until the end of July. And then from the 1st of August, the government are asking employers to start contributing more than their optional contribution. So obviously we know that it's 80% at the moment, and the employers can opt to top up to 100% if they want. From the 1st of August, employers are going to be asked to pay the employer national insurance contribution and the pension contribution on the furlough amount. And then that's going to change again from the 1st of September. So in addition to those amounts, they're going to be asked to contribute 10% to keep the payment to the employee at 80%. And then from the 1st of October, they're going to be asked to contribute 20% in addition to the employer national insurance contributions and pension contributions.
Okay, so if, for example, an employer was paying them, topping up and paying 100%, and then obviously it's going to go down to, they're only going to be able to claim 70%, can they then say, right, well, actually, we're just only paying 90%, so that it offsets against the additional payments they have to make?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they can go down to, as long as the employee is receiving 80% for the furlough pay, yes, they can reduce it to 95. The additional amount, anything over 80%, is optional, basically. So the employer can decide, as long as they get the employee's consent, and obviously the benefit to them is that they're not having to work those hours. So consent should be reasonably easily able to come to. But yeah, as long as the employee consents to that reduction in the pay, they can have it anywhere between the 80 and the 100%.
And they just need to get that in written confirmation from the employee.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Any disputes or anything like that. Okay, so and obviously one of the big changes is going to be the part-time changes that are happening. So I don't know if you want to explain that a little bit further, just so people are a bit more clearer.
Yeah, so that, thankfully, I think it's a good thing, because it's coming in a month earlier than what we originally anticipated, and the government are going to allow for this, what they're calling flexible furloughing. So what that means is that the employer will be able to bring somebody back part-time, and they'll be able to still claim for the hours that they're not working, i.e. the hours that they're furloughing. So the employer will need to pay full time for the hours that the employee has worked, and then reclaim the amount of furloughed hours. And that, as I say, comes into force from the 1st of July. So if somebody, say, for example, is contracted to work 40 hours a week, the employer could perhaps bring them back for 20 hours a week, pay them for that, and then furlough them for the rest of the other 20 hours and claim that element back. Obviously, they can't claim the full element back as far as what we can understand, but they can claim the furloughed element back.
Can that be flexible on a week-by-week basis? So they could do 20 hours one week, 10 hours a week after, and
yeah, we're still waiting for the full details, and they've said that will be available, I think, from the 12th of June. But it would seem that as long as there's no change within that week, so I don't think it'll allow for variable hours within a week, but yeah, it looks like that you'll be able to change it from week to week. However, what they have said again is that it does need to have written consent. So an employer's got to think about how onerous that might be to change it from week to week. So you might want to think about sort of getting a set amount of hours that's agreed, and then move it maybe on a monthly basis, depending on how much paperwork's involved with that.
Right, okay, brilliant. So I agree with you, because a lot of my clients have said, oh, well, I've got to work for a couple of days, but not for like full time. So by doing this, it allows them to build the business back up to before the virus hitting, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, we're seeing that it's got to be a minimum of a week that these periods are for. So they will be able to be flexible beyond a week's time, but the minimum period for that is a week.
Okay. So I suppose it's just managing that in the payroll system and keeping good track of that as well. So, and in terms of, obviously, there's the caution that it could be. So there was one issue that was pointed out about the 10th of June. So even I don't understand that. So what does that mean exactly?
Right, so they're not accepting any new entrants to the scheme after the 30th of June. But what this really means in reality, it's a bit confusing really, because even though there's no new entrants to the scheme after the 30th of June, what that means is that the last time for new entrants is the 10th of June, because they must have had that 3-week minimum claim period that we've seen so far with this furlough scheme. So it doesn't apply, as far as I can tell, and as far as the information that we've got out so far, to where somebody's kind of come in and out of furlough already, i.e. they've already been registered on the HMRC system. But anybody who hasn't yet been furloughed, the last time that you're going to be able to furlough them to use the scheme up to the end of October will be the 10th of June. So that's a really critical date.
Right, okay, so anyone that's not been on furlough, that they're thinking of putting on furlough, they have to do it by the 10th of June, basically.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Right, okay, because I know I had a discussion with a client yesterday, and she was just bringing someone off furlough for a week, but then pulling them back on furlough, and I said, well, just check out for that, make sure you're meeting this new requirement, but as long as they've already been on furlough, it's fine to do that then.
Yeah, because they'll have that claim registered somewhere in the system. So she will have been a furloughed employee previously. So from what I can tell from the information that's out there at the minute, yes, she would be able to put her back on to furlough after that time, because there'll be a record of her in the system. But say it's another colleague that hasn't yet been furloughed and they're wanting to swap that out, that colleague would then have to go on by the 10th of June. Okay, it looks like they're getting stricter as well about the sort of claim periods. So looking at the claim periods up to the 30th of June, that there will be a cut-off for that on the 31st of July. So there are beginning to be a few more key dates put into the scheme.
What do you mean by that? So you have to have claimed the June furlough claim before the 31st of July?
Yeah, that's what it looks like from the information that's been published so far. Yeah, because I think up to now it's been a bit more flexibility. You know, I know employers that haven't, because of the complexities of the scheme and then wanting to try and get it right, they hadn't put in the claim straight away. But certainly it's looking like now they're going to have a lot more set claim periods, and certainly going forward with the, you know, because the scheme is changing from the 1st of August, I think that it will be that it's got to be completed on that month-to-month basis.
Well, that makes sense. It gives everyone a cut-off point, doesn't it, really? And
yeah.
It helps HMRC with the admin side. And what about redundancies then? Because obviously now it's coming to an end. I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of companies out there that are planning for redundancies, unfortunately. What brief advice could you give to them? Because I know there's a lot of people out there that just don't understand the law requirements. So, and there's going to be certain criteria they have to meet to make sure they don't end up with a tribunal. Absolutely,
yeah. So redundancies are quite complex, and you've got to get it right, because the risk of the fines if you don't get it right is quite high. So there's 2 different strands of redundancy consultation. If you are making less than 20 redundancies, then you can just go into individual consultations, and there's no set minimum consultation period. But I would say really you're looking at over 3 to 4 weeks ideally, where you're having those conversations with that individual to look at ways that they can avoid redundancies. In some circumstances that's not going to be possible, but at least have those genuine conversations with the employees about what suggestions they could make. The employer might turn around and say, well, how about, you know, I change to a part-time contract, and that might be a way around it, you know. With redundancies of 20 and over, you need to have set consultation periods, and there's set rules about collective consultations, and that gets a lot more complex. So it's really important that people get advice if they're making more than 20 redundancies, because they've got to apply, as I say, the minimum consultation periods.
Perfect. So, and I'm sure anyone can contact you when you've got any queries on the redundancy side.
Yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, you're absolutely right, Laura, in terms of I am having a lot more calls now from employers having to start that process. So yeah, it's useful getting the right paperwork in place, making sure that the right sort of invitations go out to those consultations, making sure that you follow the correct processes. So yeah, anybody can get in touch and have a chat with me about that.
Perfect. Thank you, Emma. Appreciate it. I don't think there's anything else I want to ask. I don't know if you've got anything else that you want to
add. No, I mean, obviously keep on top of all the government announcements that are come fast and furious. I try to keep a list up on my website of all the different sort of summary pages for employers from my side of things, and just trying to keep a track of when things get published and when things get updated. So there's lots and lots of information coming out there. I would say the best thing that people can do is speak to somebody like myself or speak to somebody like you, and I know we've been keeping on top of things.
Trying to, definitely, but because it changes all the time, you just got to try and get your head around it. So it's understanding which direction to go in. But yeah, we'll help our clients as much as we can, definitely. So well, thank you, Emma. Appreciate doing this. It's been brilliant. I'm sure it's helped a lot of people. So I'll press the stop recording button.